Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Zentropy Aviation. We have part 3 and final part in a review and tutorial flight of the DC Designs Concorde for Microsoft Flight Simulator. We are currently cruising at flight level 600 on our way to Barbados and are currently located about 500 miles from our destination. Yes, so it is time to make our preparations for descent, and since the default ATC in Microsoft Flight Simulator is not particularly proactive when it comes to these things, I will ask them for permission to descend accordingly, and we can initiate our descent. We will begin by asking the passengers to fasten the seat belts over here. A couple of things to cover. Doesn't look like we have any clouds. We are in a tropical area. Moisture should not be an issue, so we are not going to enable anti-ice right now. We are cruising at Mach 2.0, and we will begin our descent by asking ATC for a decrease of 10,000 feet. Right. We are going to descend at the speed of Mach 1.5. We need to slow down to that speed. So let's go ahead and decrease the airspeed that our Mach hold is maintaining. We're using this knob here to descend, to decrease the airspeed to Mach 1.5. And let's initiate our descent. We are now on our way down. We are once again going to be monitoring our center of gravity. With this gauge right here. We are also in dusk conditions, so I have turned on some lighting to let you all see what the aircraft looks like at night, illuminated. It's quite cozy. I love the way the night lighting has been done here. It actually, dare I say, looks way better at night than it does during the day. A couple of things to keep in mind. We do not yet have the approach assigned, nor do we have a runway. I have those things set up automatic in the flight plan that I have filed with ATC prior to departure. So Barbados approach, we don't really know what runway we're going to end up landing at. We will configure that over here on the on this system once we have ATC that will clear us for a certain arrival. And we're getting down to flight level 530, slowly but surely. And just to kind of give you a heads up on our fuel situation and what we have, give it a second to update. Okay, so you see that we have exhausted the 9 and 10 trim tanks, as well as 5, 6, 7 transfer tanks. We still have a little bit left, 23% in transfer tank 8, but we do have some fuel in tanks 5A and 7A, as well as tank 11. So we're going to go ahead and utilize that, because right now the aircraft is starting to drink out of the main engine feed tanks 1, 2. So let's first utilize the fuel that we have in 5A and 7A. The way we would initiate this transfer is by opening these transfer valves on 5A and 7A, and you should be able to see the result immediately in the fuel panel of the sim. Okay, and you see the numbers are now changing. We're losing fuel in here, and we're gaining fuel in the main transfer tanks. So it's going out of here and into the main transfer tanks, where it can be used first, which is fine, because our desired center of gravity, as you can see, is starting to move forward a little bit, which is going to happen on a Concorde. As you're descending, as you're climbing to altitude, your center of gravity, your desired center of gravity, is going to move backwards to about 58, 59%. And as you're descending, it's going to keep moving forward. So at some point, we're going to initiate the transfer of fuel from tank 11 forward. We are now at 50,000 feet, so let's go ahead and ask for 40,000. And we are maintaining Mach 1.5 still. Excellent. So we're setting 400 and alt acquired. Proceeding with our descent. Now by the time we reach 30,000 feet, we should be going subsonic. That is, I believe, information from the desired descent profile of the Concorde. So we will be keeping an eye on that. After 40,000, after reaching flight 400 here, I'm going to go ahead and start slowing down further. Someone asked on the official MSFS forum, said there's no more magenta line to fly. Well, yes and no. In the actual Concorde, because it was using the INS navigation system, which is currently not implemented in the DC Designs version, but Dean said that they're going to work on it in the future once the WASM code issues with the Xbox version have been worked out, or something along those lines. But in any case, this FMS system was never in the Concorde. This is something that we're using in place of the INS for now in order to navigate, which displays our flight plan on this here, which is the weather radar. So your magenta line is technically that line that you're flying over there. So if you really wanted to cheat and see what your flight plan is, that's what you would refer to. But no, generally speaking, when you're piloting a Concorde, you would not see your typical magenta line on the instruments, no. It is a steam gauge airliner. We are at 40,000 feet. Let's go ahead and ask for permission to go down to flight 300. Okay, we're literally about 100 feet up from that, so, geez. Someone is a stickler. Okay. We have 340, which is fine. Give us an opportunity to slow down a little bit. Let's go ahead and go down to Mach 1.0. Our fuel burn during the descent phase is going to be drastically lower than for climb or cruise phases. Let's see what our fuel situation looks like here. Lovely. The 5A and 7A are officially cashed out. There's nothing there. We do have some fuel in transfer tanks 7 and 8. Which is great. Let's go ahead and shut off those valves. These transfer valves. We can shut these off. Our CG is now within the range of where it ought to be. Alright, we can go down to flight 300. We are going straight. This is our destination. We're gonna decrease the range in a little bit. So at this point, let's go ahead and go fully subsonic. We're going to reduce our speed to indicated airspeed in knots instead of a Mach number. So we will disable the Mach hold mode and enable the IIS acquired mode. Reduce our auto throttle setting to 350 knots, and we are now subsonic as we have descended to flight 300. Let's take a look and see what we have in terms of distance and how we're doing in regards to where we ought to be and where we are. So our destination is here. This is a 160 nautical mile line. So this is 240. So that's 80 nautical miles. 140. So we're about 200 miles away from Barbados. 200 miles away. At flight 300. Actually, because that's our destination is next, there are no more waypoints on the flight plan between here and our destination. It's showing us exactly how many nautical miles we have here, as well as over here, 209. So that was a good guess, that I saw that we were about 200 miles away. This is a pretty good view of what the instrument panel looks like at night. Like I said, it's not a bad looking cockpit. I keep reading all these comments about how terrible this looks from a lot of people. Yeah, it's not the prettiest aircraft that I have ever seen. There are a few things that kind of, come to mind. This thing here is probably my... See, you can't even see it in the dark, but they're not particularly round, these vents here. But Dean said that there are plans to keep improving this aircraft in the graphical department, and I believe him. It's not a terrible looking aircraft. Those who say that this looks like Flight Simulator 9, things like that just doesn't hold any weight, because it just never looked that way back in those days. So there are also plenty of aircraft on the market nowadays, unfortunately, that look much worse than this. And with Concorde, to be honest with you, like I said, there are so many things to do and performance to keep in mind, and fuel transfer to worry about, getting to the proper altitude, getting to the proper speed, making sure that you have enough fuel for your trip. That, you know, at this point, I don't really have time to think about some imperfections on the graphical finish of this aircraft. It just, for me, it looks acceptable. I can suspend my disbelief. It doesn't really ruin the immersion for me. So I hope you agree. This is not a bad looking aircraft. Could it be better? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure. And you know, they do have plans to improve it. But I think this is fine. This is fine. Not to, yeah, I'm gonna throw names out there. Take a look at Romantic Wings. Both of their releases, I mean, they include some aircraft that make this look like, you know, Da Vinci work. If you want to talk Flight Simulator 9 or whatever, take a look at that. And they're being sold for $30. $10 less than this Concorde. So, yeah. Virtual Coal, those guys. This is, I think, above and beyond that. Quality-wise, I have nothing to complain about. Alright, so let's go ahead and decrease the range. At this point, we could probably initiate descent down to flight level 200. So let's go ahead and ask for that. Okay, we got 220 instead, that's fine. Okay, what does our fuel situation look like? This is just easier for me to bring up this this panel in the sim because it's for the Concorde purposes. I never bring up this panel with any other aircraft, but this is a great way to visualize what's going on in every tank of your aircraft and how things are moving around. So it's very useful for me to bring up the fuel panel here and see what the situation is. Okay, we're starting to, okay, we have some fuel in transfer tank 8, and we keep descending. Our CG point is right there, but I think we can go ahead and start initiating the transfer of the fuel from this trim transfer tank 11 forward. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and come over to this view here, and you got to be very careful because there is an emergency shutdown for engine number 4 that's located here. It's very close to that switch. It's very easy to flip, so be sure not to accidentally shut down engine number 4, because yesterday I have done that. If you do that, like I did yesterday, there's a way to restart your engines mid-flight. All you have to do is go back there. I'll show you. Let's do this first. This fuel forward transfer switch, flip that to on. The green light is going to illuminate. I can close the guard now. And you will see that the trim transfer tank 11 is being drained now. This fuel is going to here and to here. So that is what we want. We can now go down to 20,000 feet. So in any case, if you accidentally shut down your engines by not being careful, remember right here, under this cover, the EPU, be sure to turn on EPU and just use the engine start, not that, it's this. Set starter to on and your engine will come back alive. We are getting close to flight level 200, so here's the plan, because you always need a plan, even if it will change. We don't know what runway we're arriving to. That's fine. When these guys decide to tell us, they will. So we can't really do anything in terms of planning that or entering our ILS frequencies in here, if there's going to be an ILS approach. I don't know. But we can plan our speeds. So currently we are at 350 knots. Let's get down to 250 by the time we reach 10,000 feet, and then descend from there. Our landing speed should be around 160 to 170 knots. Okay, so that's what we're shooting for. That's how much we have to slow down, which is quite a bit still. And we are 124 nautical miles from our destination. Let's go ahead and go down a little bit more, probably by 5,000 more feet.
ERO centers are now 666. Request 15,000 feet. We're now 666 descend and maintain.
All right.
Descend and maintain 15,000.
We got clearance for 15. Let's go down to 15. Don't forget, we're going to change our barometric pressure from standard to whatever it is here after passing flight level 180. $29.93. Great. Not far off. We are 108 nautical miles away from Barbados. Let's go ahead and request 10,000 feet and we can start our slowdown. So we'll do 5,000 more.
Yorgo Centers, Barbados 666. Request 10,000 feet. Barbados 666 descended and maintain 15,000 feet.
Sure.
Expect 10,000 feet.
Whatever you say, boss.
Expect 10,000 feet. Barbados 666. Barbados 666 descended and maintain 10,000 feet.
Thanks. All right. Let's get down to 10,000. Let's see what everything looks like on the outside. Yeah. So as we are approaching 10,000 feet, we are going to prepare by slowing down additionally to 300 knots. Okay, so at this point, all of our trim transfer tank fuel is gone. We have full engine feed tanks, which is going to give us plenty to make it to our destination. We still have some fuel in these main transfer tanks, which is what we're utilizing right now. So we're doing good on fuel. We're fine. We're at 10,000 feet. Let's go ahead and slow down to 250 knots. We are 84 miles from our destination. At this point, we can go ahead and deploy the extend and deploy the landing lights, taxi lights, and runway turn-off lights. Let's also turn on the logo lights here. Okay, we got runway 9.
Please stand by Smirnoff 666.
What else you got?
Smirnoff 666, roger.
How about destination arrival, right? Let's do ILS Y, runway 9. Right?
Smirnoff 666, please acknowledge. Smirnoff 666 would like ILS Yankee runway 09er approach Bravo Golf India 263 radial 15 PM ER.
Insert.
Smirnoff 666, you are 73 miles northeast. Climb and maintain flight level 200, expect ILS Yankee runway 09er approach by Bravo Golf India 263
And that is our new,
PM ER, clear to Bravo Golf India.
as you see,
Climb and maintain flight level 200, expect ILS Yankee runway 09er approach by Bravo Golf.
our new flight plan.
Radial 15 PM ER, clear to Bravo Golf India, Smirnoff 666.
Where is it turning us? Is it a transition point? It is taking us to... Yeah, that is not where we need to go. So that's okay, it's easily fixed. This is one of the flight planning things with MSFS that's really fun. It's taking us to Bannock, and that point is at flight 600, so it's nowhere really where we need to be. What we're gonna do is we're gonna initiate a direct to... Wait. The next point is Oledo. So we're gonna initiate a direct to Oledo, and that should hopefully put us on a more sensible approach. User Bannock Oledo. Here we go. Go. And now we are once again making a turn back to where we needed to be going in the first place. So that's fine and dandy. Okay, next step. If you go under rad nav, I'm not climbing to 200 psi. So rad nav, you have the frequency for ILS runway 9 at 110.10. We are going to go ahead and enter that 110.10 into both of the nav 1 and nav 2 units. I have independently just now verified that 110.10 is indeed the frequency for ILS 9. It's called Trust But Verify. You should, when you program an ILS approach, usually you will have correct frequency illuminated in here. I always like to double check, so I check the approach charts, and that's the frequency. So now, as you see, we are intercepting that path. The approach, you can see we're flying towards it right here. And our final approach course for Adams Airport, the Grantley Adams International in Barbados, is 91 degrees. So we are going to go ahead and how do you change course? That's okay. We don't need to worry about that right now. So let's just manage a few things here. Let's take a look at this and make sure we are So what's going to happen is we are following this line here, and then we have a fairly substantial sharp turn to the left. It looks like there's not enough room here, but there is, considering that our range right now is 80 nautical miles. So there would be plenty of time to make that turn and get ourselves lined up with that final approach course of 91 degrees. So I don't have any concerns here. We are 66 nautical miles away from our next waypoint, which is that over there. You can see it on the flight plan. At which point we need to be above 2,500 feet. Let's go ahead and slow down to 240 knots. At this point, I am blowing off what ATC is telling me because they don't know what they're talking about. So I'm slowing down to 240 knots. And in, I would say, when we have 30 nautical miles left until that point, we're going to begin our descent. Okay, to 2,500 feet. At this point, I'm also going to do a couple of things. As we're descending, we're going to lower our visor down.
Smirnoff 666, please expedite your climb, flight level 200.
You see it going down now. This is a good view because it lets you see that the aircraft is starting to adapt kind of a nose-up attitude, which is typical of the Concorde in its landing phase. We have our landing lights on, as you see. Good to go. We're going to start dropping our nose when we begin our descent. No, my dear, I am not climbing to flight level 200. You can stop asking. It's now dark. You can see what I was talking about. The very cozy looking flight deck lighting is gorgeous. And you can regulate everything. You can turn things down. There are 3 knobs here, 3 knobs here. There's actually a panel. These lights actually come out of the ceiling when you first turn them on. They kind of like slowly deploy out of the ceiling, right? And so there are controls here, 3 over here, 3 over on the other side, right? That controls mostly these upper areas. You have these 3 lighting knobs for the first officer glare shield. Right, I'm going to kind of turn it down a little bit right now. And these 3 knobs here are for this side, for the captain side. Instruments. Right, and back here you also have, okay, so this controls the gauges. Take a look at the gauges themselves, right? So this is the gauges. Right? This controls the writing, the letters, right? That controls the dome light over the flight engineer station. And finally, this here controls the glare shield on the panels themselves. So we can leave this be. It's fine. We have about 6 more nautical miles to go before we begin our descent to 2,500 feet and our approach. On our map, let's go ahead and decrease the range once again. Right on the money. This gentleman is starting to get on my last nerve. This is the one unfortunate thing about MSFS is in prepared, ATC is much more intelligent in terms of altitudes and especially vectoring. Like, they will not wait until you are flying according to your flight plan. They might actually get you to cut some corners from your star if you're following a star and vector you continuously to your runway. They will always vector you to your runway. You can count on that, and they're also really good in terms of assigning altitude. Not perfect, I have seen them make idiotic calls before, but they will usually not fly you into a mountain. Let's go ahead and begin our descent, because I don't have a way to ask them for it. Let's go down to 3,000. And we have land ahead of us. So, yeah, prepared ATC usually will not fly you into things like mountains. MSFS will. I don't know why the ATC in this simulator is not as developed as what we had in prepared, what we have in prepared. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and put the gear down. This alarm that you're hearing is the gear warning. And now it's off because our gear is down. Additionally, we're going to droop the nose to 5 degrees. We're 21 nautical miles away from that. Let's go ahead and slow down to 220 knots. We are in a nose 5 degrees down configuration with the gear out and landing lights deployed, starting to slow down and begin our final approach to the Adams Airport in Barbados, which I think I can see. Yes, I can see it from here. It is right over that way. Let's decrease our range once again. Beautiful. We are at 3,800 feet. What do we see here? So this is going to be the localizer, and this is going to be your glide slope for your ILS approach. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until we make that final turn to 91 degrees, which is this final leg here. Once we do that, I am going to switch from the INS GPS mode to RAD nav, and that's going to get us onto that 110.10 frequency that we have dialed in for navigation, and should enable us to follow the glide slope down. This is not a Cat 3, I don't think, facility. Regardless, the weather is absolutely beautiful. I am going to hand fly this like there's no tomorrow. There's great visibility. No reason not to hand fly that final approach and landing and touchdown. Will give you guys the ability to see what is happening here. We are 8 nautical miles away. Let's slow down to 200 knots. And put our nose all the way down to 12.5 degrees. And now you're seeing the quintessential Concorde on approach attitude. Nose up pitch, but nose drooped down. They finally gave us clearance to get to 3,000 feet. That's great of them. We're about to make our turn to final. Okay, so talk to the tower. 2 nautical miles away from the turn. We have wind at 27 knots. That's not very nice. If that's the case, I don't really know if that's the case because MSFS has some weird weather reporting habits. But we are making our final turn. Let's go ahead and switch our navigation. We are below the glide slope, which is beautiful. We have the localizer here. It's to the left. Everything corresponds correctly. That's the runway. So we're going to go ahead and line up with it. Let's go down to 180 knots. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and put our autopilot to glide. And auto land is enabled. I am not going to do the auto land. Usually, I mean, I would do that if the weather was not particularly great, but in this case the weather is fine. Let's go down to 170 knots. We are descending. The wind is no joke, according to these guys. So I want to play it safe. I don't want to put it down to 160 knots. Yeah. Thank you. So once this is lined up, we are about 1,000 up. I'm going to disengage the autopilot. Auto throttle is going to remain engaged until just prior to flare. And we are happy, happy, joy, joy, landing in Barbados. Here we go. Localizer is coming to the center. And we are straightening out. We are stable on approach. This is a good time for me to go ahead and disengage the autopilot. And I'm going to hand fly it now. How well I do that remains to be seen, but I will do it. Yeah, there's definitely crosswind happening here. Our PAPI lights are okay. A little bit too high. Okay, disengage the auto throttle. I'm gonna kill this and flare. Nose down. This was not ideal, far from ideal. This is not particularly the easiest bird to land in this kind of wind. Yes, I heard your last transmission. But I didn't crash. I do have crashes enabled. All right. I don't want that. Taxi to parking. First thing we're going to do is raise our nose back to 5 degrees. And there it is. It has come up now. The other thing that I wish I had was an ability to review my landing from a third-person perspective via instant replay, which I always do in prepared. But right now this thing is in some kind of beta developmental dev tools mode on MSFS, and I've actually never launched it in that mode. I just don't have the desire. Their finished stuff sometimes has lots of issues, so if they're hiding it behind a dev mode, I don't know what kind of issues there are going to be there, and I don't want to know. When it's ready, when they will incorporate that into the GUI of the sim, they feel strong about it, then I'll take a look at it. In the meantime, this is our arrival into Barbados at night in DC Designs Concorde. We're gonna go ahead and park and begin shutting down the aircraft. And parking brake. So we finished with 16.7. Not too bad, not too bad. All right, so lighting, by the way, this is a good opportunity to see lights being all the way up. All the way up. Time to wake up for everybody. Turning on all of these lights. So as you can see, there is a ton of flexibility in terms of what you can do with the lighting options that we've been given with this aircraft. Illumination of everything important that you would care about is there. It is very good. Okay, so there you have it. Okay, shutdown, right? We're gonna disable the flight directors. Our transponder can go off. This and okay, seat belts, no smoking, can go off. Right, logo off, anti-collision, nav and beacon. Technically, really, that gets turned off after your engine gets turned off, but we can do it now. Pitot heat. We can disengage the auto ignition. Landing lights, taxi lights, runway turn-off lights can all go down. The servos for the trim, roll, and all of that fun stuff can go off. Okay, and then you have, for the 4 engines, you have the fuel cutoff, which is here. That is how you're going to shut off your engines, I believe, right? So we're just going to go ahead and disable them here. And now the engines are dying. Great. We're gonna go ahead and take a walk back here. Let's go ahead and turn off the engine bleeds. As well as this cover can go this cover. Okay, no. Fuel to off. Okay, perfect. And crossfeed goes like this. The low pressure valves go this way. And we also have this up here, which is the split toggle close that we're going to do. And last step, we're going to turn off battery 2 and battery 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now cold and dark, parked in Barbados. Can't see a thing. And I want to thank you for watching. Please do me a favor, help me build this channel help support this channel. I would appreciate if you subscribe and like this video. I am going to try to get you as much content as often as possible in the way of reviews, tutorials, previews of upcoming products, and I would really greatly appreciate your support. If you have any questions, comments, or anything of the sort, please let me know in the comments below. I always monitor that and try to respond to every single one of you. Thank you for everything, and I will see you soon. Take care.